What if the weight you carry, not just the flesh that society mocks, but the invisible chains of self-doubt forged in the fires of rejection, could shatter in a single, plummeting instant, leaving you to taste the sweet rush of freedom on your lips, feel the sting of forgotten bruises under your skin, and hear the echo of a stranger's laughter in your own voice. Picture the metallic bite of hospital antiseptic mingling with the faint, cloying sweetness of confectionery wrappers, as a woman's eyes flutter open to a world remade, her reflection no longer a foe but a fierce ally, much like Joan of Arc gazing upon her armor, not as burden but as banner, defying the flames that sought to consume her. On October 6, 2025, as Tokyo's autumn skies wept golden leaves like unshed tears, plus-sized Misadventures in Love, Episode 1, Positive Thinking, emerged as the inaugural spark in a saga of transformation and tangled hearts, igniting a fall season's arc of self-discovery amid romantic whirlwinds. It's the elixir of bitter truths and buoyant delights, intriguing in its audacious pivot from shadow to shine, yet veiled in mysteries that tease without tantalizing fully, leaving me with a hunger akin to biting into a half-melted chocolate, rich, incomplete, irresistible. Have you ever plunged into despair's abyss, only to surface reborn, wondering if the light above is salvation or illusion? The episode doesn't decree. It drapes the question over you like a silken shroud, the suspense a slow simmer that curls in your gut, urging you to chase the flavor of what comes next. What shadows linger in the cracks of her smile, and will they devour the dawn she's claimed? In the sterile hush of a hospital room, where beeps punctuate the air like hesitant heartbeats and the faint rustle of bedsheets whispers of unrest, Yumiko Koda awakens from a catastrophic fall, her past a blank canvas, her present a vibrant burst of unbridled optimism. Once shackled by the weight of her own gaze in the mirror, she now navigates her confectionery office with a zeal that disarms colleagues and stirs undercurrents of envy, her interactions laced with accidental revelations that hint at buried tensions. A chance encounter blooms into tentative connection, while whispers of foul play shadow her revival, blending workplace banter with an enigmatic edge. As this premiere launches the series, no predecessors to echo its steps, it transitions from solitary fracture to communal chaos, priming arcs of romance and intrigue. Envision yourself there, pulse quickening as her laughter cuts through the cubicle din like a rebel's cry in a silent court, much like the defiant whispers in Versailles halls before the storm broke. Does her newfound fire forge alliances or fan flames of betrayal? The outline omits the full portrait, a notebook's secrets, a gaze that lingers too long, a call that chills the spine. It's the essence of Da Vinci's unfinished sketches, not the masterpiece complete, but the compulsion to behold its evolution, the curiosity coiling like smoke from a snuffed candle. Not the tale's body, but its breath, that insistent invitation to inhale deeper, to uncover if her misadventures mend or maim. The narrative surges with the velocity of a freefall arrested mid-plunge, propelling from Yumiko's pre-accident despair to her post-amnesia exuberance, establishing the core conflict of identity's reinvention, while seeding romantic and mysterious vines that entwine the overarching story. Revelations cascade early. Her erased memories unveil a confident alter ego, a twist in the accident's origin, shifting from self-inflicted to suspected sabotage, and interpersonal frictions that culminate in a cliffhanger whisper of conspiracy, dangling the threat of unraveling her fragile facade. Pacing is brisk yet balanced, compressing introspective lulls with comedic crescendos, ensuring dramatic equilibrium where humor's lift counters tension's pull. Though the velocity occasionally blurs subtleties for impact, fans frequently probe cloudy aspects, those foggy facets that spark speculation. Was the fall a suicide bid or foul play? Why the inexplicable blonde transformation? Does her body harbor subconscious echoes of the past? The manga, authored by Mama Carey and serialized digitally on Kwasuru Soiree since September 2019, with 13 volumes as of June 2025, dispels these myths through Chapter 1's raw intimacy. Yumiko's descent stems from profound self-loathing, fueled by unrequited affection for a colleague and societal scorn for her plus-sized frame, echoing the manga's emphasis on internal torment over the anime's external intrigue. Her hair shift, a stylistic flourish in the source, symbolizing rebirth sans literal explanation, detailed in early panels as a visual metaphor for shedding her ugly self-perception. Bodily reactions, like instinctive unease around suspects, draw from Chapter 2's exploration of residual trauma, where suppressed memories manifest physically, providing context for the animation's abbreviated hints. Not amnesia absolute, but selective, allowing growth amid peril. This adaptation, while faithful to the rom-com core, amplifies the murder mystery, absent in the manga's initial focus on self-acceptance, to heighten stakes, transforming ambiguities from oversights to deliberate lures. What if the episode's veils are the very threads weaving her redemption? Yumiko unfurls like a bloom defying winter's grip, her pre-accident wounds of crippling insecurity insecurity, rooted in body shaming and unreciprocated yearning, propel a motivation to seize joy in her reset state. Her choices a surprising symphony of boldness that transforms from timid acquiescence to assertive charm. Consistent in her core vulnerability, yet transformative in dialogue that evolves from inner monologues of hate to outward affirmations of worth. Keisuke Yuki, the enigmatic vice president, reveals hidden layers of quiet compassion amid corporate stoicism, his motivations tangled in genuine concern that surprises in subtle gestures, his retorts a consistent blend of reserve and revelation. Tamai's jealousy simmers as a psychological thorn, her two-faced facade a wound of inadequacy manifesting in sabotage, choices consistent with envy, yet potentially transformative if alliances shift. Were their arcs surprising? Utterly, like Frida Kahlo's self-portraits fracturing to reveal resilient spirits, dialogue pivots from barbed to bridging, growth etched in shared glances. Reader, when have your reflections betrayed you, only to rally as your fiercest defender? The episode delves with delicate incision. What defines the self when stripped of scars, power in societal gazes, or the morality of self-forged worth? Sacrifice emerges in Yumiko's lost past, a voluntary void for survival's sake, her struggles manifesting hope's defiance against despair's drag, echoing Epictetus' stoic rebirth, where chains of perception shatter through will. Morality phrase in colleagues' duplicity, choices like Tamai's theft a survival tactic in cutthroat confines, probing power's abuse in beauty's hierarchy. Hope versus despair, Yumiko's vibrancy a beacon, illuminating how reinvention births light from loathing's abyss. Beyond labels, it murmurs. In your own corporeal cage, have you sacrificed authenticity for acceptance, morality for a mirror's mercy? The confectionery office unfurls as a microcosm of sweetened strife. New lore in hierarchical rituals and body image biases complicating interpersonal webs, enriching the rom-com with authentic societal grit without overcomplication. Akin to Dickens' Factory's blending toil with tender hearts, the script gleams with candied edge, sharp barbs softened by poetic sincerity. Yumiko's "I'm super cute," a cliché reborn as empowering mantra, lines laden with foreshadow subtle spice that resonate like aftertastes of forbidden fruit. Impactful, profoundly, each exchange a confection that lingers, no filler. Imagine eavesdropping in a bustling break room, her defiant cheer slicing the murmurs. Would you rewrite your worth for a love that sees beyond the scale? The writing enchants, not with excess but essence, suspending you in the subtext, the fade-out of flavor begging more. Marvy Jack's art direction favors effervescent flair, Yumiko's palette shifting from muted grays of despair to radiant pinks post-awakening, colors symbolizing emancipation, lighting bathing her in warm glows that cast shadows of doubt elsewhere. Fluidity excels in expressive flails, symbolism in movement, frantic dashes versus still revelations, shaping impact where beauty signifies empowerment. Not superficial gloss, but a radiant rebuke to ridicule, like Botticelli's Venus rising unashamed. Kazuomi Koga's vision is empathetic voyeur, low angles amplifying Yumiko's newfound stature, compositions framing her amid envious clusters to mirror isolation's thaw, editing a rhythmic pulse, swift montages in comedic chaos, lingering shots on tear-streaked faces heightening emotional undercurrents. It amplifies tension through intimate pans, drawing you into her orbit as if the frame captures your unspoken judgments. The OST conspires as soul's symphony. Gang Parade's Happy Yummy Lucky Yummy, opener a buoyant burst elevating rebirth's joy, motifs of twinkling chimes underscoring epiphanies that etch into memory. Crescendo's performances don't merely speak, they sing the unsung, voices the vital pulse animating reinvention. It settled in me like a bruise blooming into beauty, a swell of empathetic elation from Yumiko's unapologetic glow, scars from her shadowed past sparking wonder in her fearless forge ahead. I felt the jolt, a destiny's derailment in that awakening gaze, a fulcrum where fracture flips to fortune, orbits realigned in a singular, shattering glance. Moments imprint, the mirror's merciful stare, wonder kindled in wide eyes, the whisper that warps alliances, a scar of shared secrets. It evokes eternal enigmas. Have you, in judgment's jaws, yearned for amnesia's absolution? Despaired at the divide between seen and cherished? Here, hope surges not as salve, but surge. What if your misadventures are the map to mercy? The episode lingers, a philosophical phantom fading into fog, curiosity cresting like waves on a restless shore. Sense that swell yet, the pull to plunge in, to parse the pieces, reverse the prism on potential pitfalls, and they refract as purposeful prisms. Pacing's haste not haste, but heartbeat, mirroring transformation's tumult, opacity and mysteries a thematic tease inviting investment, like Proust's Madeleine's evoking depths through dips. Complexities weave, deliberate, threading nuance into rom-com's romp. Appreciation anchors, critique gentles the girth. rebirth. I think the fat humor teetered toward trope, a touch tart, but it tempers the treat, undiminished, asterisk plus-sized misadventures in love, asterisk episode 1 shines in its spirited synthesis. Premise a powder keg of pathos and play, characters chiseled with compassionate cuts, artistry and anthem to audacity. It succeeds narratively, in seeding a symphony of self-love amid strife, artistically, in evoking the exquisite elixir of emergence. Weaknesses, minor morsels of mirth that overindulge, awaiting refinement. Yet muse this, seeker. What if shunning her saga starves your own spirit's sweet tooth, leaving echoes empty in the expanse of the unexplored? The episode isn't closure, it's craving, confection crumbling at your fingertips. Indulge. Let her rebirth become the bite that awakens yours. Feel the cool kiss of porcelain against your palm as you step onto the scale. Not a judgment, but a jolt. The faint creak of floorboards underfoot echoing like the hesitant heartbeat of a society that weighs worth in whispers. The bitter aftertaste of office coffee curdling with the salt of sidelong stares, as if your curves could confess the crimes of craving joy in a world starved for it. In the shadowed ledger of self, where we all tally triumphs against the toll of taunts, echoing the defiant dances of Rubens' full-figured muses, or your own furtive glances in fitting-room fluorescence, what if erasure birthed not oblivion, but audacity? Episode 2 of Plus-Sized Misadventures in Love, aired on October 13, 2025, tilts this teetering scale within the buoyant aftershock of Episode 1. Yumiko's amnesia-fueled metamorphosis from mope to maven, her workplace waltz with whimsy igniting sparks of suspicion and seduction. It's a beguiling brew of banter and buried barbs, intriguing in its effervescent escalations, the fizz of fizzy confections masking the ferment of fractured facades, yet veiling the verdicts that verdict the heart's verdict. You've balanced your own ledgers at watercooler whispers or midnight weigh-ins, haven't you? The numbers not adding up to the narrative you narrate? The episode doesn't tip the scales. It tempts you to leap, the air alive with the pop of possibilities that prickle your skin like carbonation on the tongue. What weighs heavier, the grudge you grip or the grace you grant? The frame flickers, your reflection wavers. Step closer or let the unanswered ache tip you toward the stream. From the effulgent embers of Episode 1, where Yumiko's reborn bravado bulldozed bullies and beckoned a benchside beau, her notebook nabbed notations a nexus of nascent narratives. This sophomore sojourn, fizz and forgiveness, ferments forward into the froth of fellowship and faints. Yumiko, that whirlwind of willful wonder, corners a colleague's covert covetousness, catalyzing a confectionery caper. Pilfered pages propel a partnership, birthing bubbly brainstorms that bubble over into boardroom bravos, all while whispers of workplace webs, entangled executives, estranged spouses, ensnare the ether. A serendipitous sighting splices stranger into suitor, the park's placid paths paving personal pursuits, yet a shadowed sleuth slinks in, his silhouette a sly sequel to the sabotage that scarred her start. It's the cocktail hour confessional of a Devil Wears Prada desk drama, recast in Ramoon's radiant ripple, where every endorsement echoes the endorsements we withhold from ourselves. Taste the tang of triumph on your tongue at that triumphant toast, the clink of glasses like conspirators' cues. Does alliance armor or allure ambush? The episode exhales on an enigmatic exhale, a half-sipped sip that seduces return, luring you like a lost page fluttering free. The plot percolates with persuasive precision, propelling the proceedings from personal phoenix to professional pas de deux, each escalation an essential entry advancing the alchemical arc of acceptance and intrigue. Revelations ripple like effervescent waves, the pilfers pilfering unveiled not as malice but malaise, a pivot that parcels forgiveness into forward momentum. The park phantom's phantasmagoric familiarity, a romantic revelation sans rupture, teasing the thriller's tendrils without tangle. No narrative nosedives, but a cliffhanger crystallizes in the sleuth's shadowed summons, a cryptic caller whose cadence conjures consequences, mirroring the manga's mid-volume mysteries where mishaps multiply into menace. Pacing, a sprightly spritzer, snappy skirmishes in snack-savvy schematics balance the brooding beats of backstory, dramatic equipoise favoring frolic over fret, the 24-minute measure marinating mirth with mystery's mordant edge, those cloudy aspects, clouding comment sections like condensation on a chilled chalice. Why the pilfer's precipitate penitence, a switch too swift for some sensibilities, and what whispers the wanderer's wooded wanderings, those dawn-lit drifts defying desk-bound decorum? Fans forage forums for footing. Does the detective's debut dilute the dramedy, or deepen its draft? The manga's Chapter 2, splashed across Comic Valkyrie, adapting its 2022 debut serialization with fidelity, blending beats from Chapters 2 and 3, clarifies with crystalline candor. The colleague's covetous coup stems from chronic chagrin, overlooked overtime echoing the creator's own corporate confessions in volume extras, her jerk, veneer of vexation, not villainy, resolved in reciprocity that recurs in Arc 2, Chapter 6, as symbiotic successes. The park perambulations? No nebulous mindless nonsense. Chapter 3 discloses the executive's escapes as escapes from executive ennui, a bomb for betrayed betrothals hinted in side stories. The detectives drop in a deliberate dovetail to the source's suspenseful spine. Yumiko's accident no anomaly, but an arrow aimed at affluence, unraveling in Volume 1's Vortex, Chapter 8, where Office Odyssey's orbit orchestrated outrage. This animated iteration, telescoping timelines for teletempo, dispels the dew. No haze, but heady haze. The ambiguity's an appetizer to the feast of facets, fortifying the frame's flavorful forge. Characters cascade into complexity like candies in a kaleidoscope, their interiors illuminated in iridescent inks. Yumiko, that paragon of post-amnesiac pluck, unearths her unhealed ulcers in unyielding uplift, self-scorned specter lingering in sidelong sighs, her drive a defiant decree against diminishment. Choices like conciliatory confections consistent yet coup de grace, transformative in their tender tenacity, akin to Elizabeth Bennet's barbed banter blooming into bold benevolence. The colleague, a cauldron of concealed competence, motivates through muffled miseries, her arc from antagonist to accomplice a surprising salve that surprises with sincerity. The executive's enigma unspools in urbane undercurrents, growth glimpsed in grudging grins. Even the orbiting orbiters, orchestral officers, estranged echoes, enrich with resonant restraint. Consistent, crystal, surprising, like saccharin in salt. Thematically, the episode doesn't dictate. It dissolves into the drink, profound potables poured through prisms of pardon and pursuit. Power percolates in the pantry's pecking order. Yumiko's positivity a panacea piercing hierarchies, manifesting in her merger of mishaps into masterpieces. Echoing Foucault's fluid forces, but fizzed with feminist fire. Morality mingles in the mix. Is absolution an abdication, or an alchemy of empathy? Sacrifice simmers in the colleague's suppressed spites, survival in the snack's successful sale, hope a heady haze against despair's dry heave. These aren't sermons. They're savored in the executive's evasive eyes, Yumiko's unblinking bet, philosophical fizz that queries. Does delight demand defiance of the Dieter's decree? World-building bubbles up in boardroom bylaws, corporate conundrums, confectionery contests, clandestine couplings. Enrich the expanse with ethical effluvia, cultural codes of Japan's salaryman sacraments complicating camaraderie, where kudos curry favor but kindness kindles kinship. No overload. It oxygenates, turning the cubicle into a crucible of confection and conspiracy. Dialogue? A dipper in delight's distillate, sharp as a shard of sugar glass, poetic in its pauses pulsing with punch, impactful without insipid indulgence, dodging cliché for the clever crackle of confessional quips. Lines like the colleagues choked, I envied your ease for shadow fissures sealed in solidarity, resonate post-credits like the lingering lift of laughter in a lonely lunch, reminiscent of Austen's arch asides amid assembly line absurdities. You've savored such salvos at strategy sessions or supper standoffs, haven't you? Words waiting the what-ifs? The script doesn't slake. It stimulates, a sip that lingers like liquor on the lips. Art direction delights with decadent detail, a cornucopia of coral curves and citron confections symbolizing the spectrum of self. Softer shadows on Yumiko's form a subtle sacrament to substance, lighting lavishing her labors in luminous layers that evoke the soul's slow unfurling. Movement a merry meringue in montage madness. Stillness a steely stare into the scale's silent summons. Fluidity froths in frenzied flourishes. Collaborative capers in cartoonish cascades, yet repose reigns in reflective regards, nods to the nuanced nudes of Renoir, where beauty isn't brittle but buoyant, the vivid vitality voicing validation's vital verse, colors cascading like caramel and cream, direction and cinematography concoct with conspiratorial cunning, close crops on collaborative clutches, composing confluences that cradle conflict in their curves, editing's ebullient ebbs a mirror to mended minds, zippy zooms and zesty zaps, languid laps over lab-laid labors, amplifying Yumiko's yearning like Spielberg's sentimental swells, but sweetened with subversion. It magnifies the melange, every shot a sugared snare. The OST? An oracle of effervescence, bubbly brass blasting brainstorms, a whimsical woodwind weaving whimsy into the workplace's wry warp, motifs of merry maracas haunting the hush of half-confessions, crescendos cresting in chip champion cheers like Bernstein's buoyant ballets bottled for boardroom bliss. Yuki's buoyant breaks, a tremor that turns tics into tonics, souls sugared in sound. This episode effervesces emotions like overlooked overnights, a buoyant bloom in your bosom that buoys your buried bravados, scars from glimpsing the colleagues' concealed chasms mirroring your masked malaises, wonders whipped up in the whimsical weld of workplace wonders that wonder at worth's weird weights. I was struck, deeply, by that confessional cascade, a moment of marrow-melting mercy that morphed mirth into a meditation on mending, leaving me light-headed in the after-aroma of absolution. The crest? A confluence of confessions, destinies dissolving in a deluge of delight, a demarcation where doubts dissipate and dreams declare, realigning the recipe for reckoning's ripe. It reverberates with our resentments relinquished at reconciliation rites, the philosophical phantom. If even a pilfered page can page turn to partnership, what pilfered potentials in your pantry plead for pardon? You've pondered such pardons at potlucks passed over or promotions pilfered, haven't you? The grudge's grip loosening like fizz from the flute? Despair deflates in the detritus of disdain, but hope hydrates, a hue in the haze, humming like the hum of a half-healed heart through reverse reading's refracted prism. The episode's flaws fizz as features of finesse. Pacing precipitates in pockets, the penitent's plot precipitous for purists of protracted pathos. Yet it's no haste but homage to the manga's mercurial moods, distilling daphnis for dramatic delight akin to the office's osmotic oddities. Complexity confounds in the conundrum of couplings, affair illusions too elusive, but opacity, orchestrated opulence, thematic tendrils that tease the tension of tangled ties, per chapter 3's coy conundrums. I didn't love the fat jab frequency, a chill that chafes like an ill-fit frock, though reframed, it ritualizes the rom-com's raw reclamation, a nod to the manga's unapologetic anthems of abundance. Appreciation aerates the appraisal, the acuity of alliances affirmed, the affability of absurdities aired, outweighing quibbles like the animation's occasional asperity, a charm chiseled from confectioner's chaos. Balanced, bubbly, the beam bending toward bliss. Asterisk plus-sized misadventures in love. Asterisk episode 2 triumphs in its effervescent empathies. A comedic catharsis crystallized from corporate crucibles, characters contoured with compassionate candor, a universe unveiled in the urgent umbra of unapologetic allure. Its strengths shimmer, the sprightly spark of Yumiko's defiance, the subtle suture of workplace wounds, the suspenseful spritz of secrets yet to spill. Weaknesses, mere whispers of whirlwind whimsy and wiry warmth, dissolving in the deluge of delight. Artistically, it animates the audacity of acceptance. Narratively, it nurtures the nerve of nascent narratives, weaving workplace farce with wistful wisdom. It succeeds splendidly, a clarion for the cast aside, a confection for the courage-starved soul. Yet as the credits cascade like candy wrappers caught in a confectioner's confetti, a question lingers like the last drop in a glass. If a stolen scrap can sweeten solidarity, what buried bounty in your heart waits to burst free? The scale stands silent, its numbers no longer nemesis but notes in a melody yet to be sung. The episode isn't an escape, it's an excavation, a fizzing fuse to your own forgotten ferocity. Will you sip the story, letting its sparkle sear your scars? Or will you let the chalice sit, its contents cooling, while the weight of what-ifs settles like sediment in your soul? The screen pulses, a heartbeat beckoning, taste the truth, or forever thirst for the tale untold. This refined conclusion deepens the emotional pull and poetic cliffhanger, ensuring the reader feels compelled to watch episode 2 to unravel the tantalizing threads left dangling. If you meant to continue into episode 3 or another anime, or if you wanted a specific section expanded, e.g., more on Yumiko's arc or the manga's context, please let me know, and I'll craft it with the same immersive spell. Thank you for guiding the weave. Let's perfect the potion.